Ethan Blake, a young journalist fresh out of college, was eager to make his mark. When his editor sent him to investigate a mysterious pharmaceutical company named MedGenix, he didn't think much of it. The company had built a massive lab in a quiet mountain town, promising cures for diseases. But locals whispered about strange happenings, missing people, sick workers, and trucks driving in the middle of the night. Ethan arrived in the town of Clearview and found it eerily quiet. The streets were empty, and the townsfolk avoided his questions. He checked into a small motel and began his work. His first stop was the MedGenix lab, a shiny building surrounded by high fences and cameras. "No entry without permission," said a guard at the gate. Ethan had expected that, so he decided to talk to the locals instead. At a diner, Ethan met Sarah, a waitress who had lived in Clearview all her life. When he mentioned MedGenix, her face turned pale. "You should leave," she whispered. "People who ask too many questions don't stay here long." Ethan was undeterred. He spent the next few days gathering clues. He noticed strange things: a truck leaving the lab every night, people in lab coats hurrying through back alleys, and townsfolk who seemed scared to even look at the lab. One night, Ethan followed the truck. It drove to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Hiding behind some barrels, he watched workers unload crates marked with the MedGenix logo. Inside, the crates were vials of a strange liquid and stacks of files labeled trial subjects. Ethan took photos with his camera, his heart racing. The next morning, Ethan showed the photos to Dr. Lena Harper, a former MedGenix scientist he had convinced to meet him. "This is worse than I thought," Lena said, her voice shaking. She explained that MedGenix was testing an experimental drug on unsuspecting locales. The drug had dangerous side effects, causing severe illnesses and even death. Lena agreed to help Ethan expose MedGenix. They planned to sneak into the lab that night to gather more evidence. As they approached the fence, Lena used her old access card to disable the security system. They crept inside, hearts pounding, and found a storage room filled with files and vials. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Guards swarmed the building. Ethan and Lena grabbed as much as they could and ran. They barely escaped through a side door, but Ethan dropped his camera in the chaos. The next day, MedGenix CEO Victor Kane held a press conference. He denied all accusations, calling Ethan a liar. But Ethan wasn't giving up. He used the files Lena had saved to write an explosive article detailing the company's crimes. Victor Kane wasn't done with Ethan. One night, as Ethan was walking back to his motel, a black car followed him. Two men got out of the car, their faces shadowed under the dim streetlights. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He tightened his grip on his bag, knowing it held the evidence MedGenix would kill to destroy. The taller of the two men said coldly, "Hand over the bag, and this doesn't have to get messy." Ethan backed away, his heart racing. "I don't think so," he replied, trying to sound braver than he felt. The shorter man lunged forward, but Ethan turned and sprinted down the narrow street. Adrenaline pumped through his veins as he weaved between parked cars, dodging their grasp. He turned a corner, his shoes skidding on the wet pavement, and ducked into an alley. He crouched behind a dumpster, trying to steady his breathing. The sound of hurried footsteps grew louder. "Split up!" one of the men barked. He can't have gone far. Ethan held his breath as one of the men walked past his hiding spot. Just as the man turned away, Ethan spotted an open fire escape ladder. Quietly, he climbed up to the rooftop, careful not to make any noise. From the rooftop, Ethan could see the men circling below, their frustration evident. He needed to get to Lena and the rest of the evidence before it was too late. Pulling out a burner phone he had hidden in his sock, he texted Lena, "Trouble. Meet me at the safe house. Go now." Ethan made his way across the rooftops, jumping from building to building until he reached the edge of the block. He climbed down another fire escape and slipped into a crowded subway station. Blending into the sea of commuters, he bought a ticket and boarded a train heading across the city. At the safe house, a rundown apartment Lena had secured through a contact, she was already packing up files and vials. When Ethan burst through the door, she looked up, startled. "What happened?" she asked, her face pale. "They found me," Ethan panted. "Two of Kane's guys tried to grab me. We need to move now." Lena nodded, grabbing the last of the evidence. "I contacted a federal agent I trust," she said. "They're waiting for us at a secure location." As they left the apartment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The streets were eerily quiet, and every passing car made him tense. They reached the meeting point, a small diner on the outskirts of the city. Inside, Agent Roberts, a grizzled veteran with piercing eyes, was waiting for them. "You're late," he said, motioning for them to sit. Ethan handed over the files and explained everything. Roberts flipped through the documents, his expression darkening. "This is damning evidence," he said. "We'll take it from here. But you two need to lay low. Kane won't stop until you're silenced." Suddenly, the diner's windows shattered as bullets tore through the glass. "Get down," Roberts shouted, pulling a gun from his holster. Ethan and Lena scrambled behind a counter as armed men stormed in. Roberts returned fire, holding them off. "Go out the back," he yelled. Ethan grabbed Lena's hand, and they bolted through the kitchen and out into an alley. They ran for what felt like miles, finally ducking into an abandoned warehouse. "This is insane," Lena gasped. "They're everywhere." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. "We need to turn the tables. Kane thinks he's untouchable, but we can expose him before he can stop us." Using an old laptop they found in the warehouse, Ethan hacked into MedGenix's internal servers using credentials Lena remembered from her time there. After several tense minutes, they struck gold a trove of emails, financial records, and video footage of illegal experiments conducted on unsuspecting patients. "This is it," Ethan whispered, his hands trembling as he clicked through the damning evidence. "This will bring Kane down for good." Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching outside jolted them. A group of armed men had surrounded the warehouse, shouting orders and preparing to storm the building. "We're out of time," Lena said, panic in her voice. Ethan quickly uploaded the files to a secure cloud drive, encrypting the link. "I'm sending this to every major news outlet," he said. His fingers flew across the keyboard as the door rattled, then burst open. "Drop the laptop," one of the men barked, aiming his gun. Ethan raised his hands, his heart pounding. "The files are already gone," he bluffed, hoping they wouldn't check. "Liar," the leader snarled, grabbing Ethan by the collar. Before he could say more, Lena hurled a toolbox at the man, hitting him squarely on the head. Chaos erupted as Ethan and Lena fought their way through the attackers. Using the shadows to their advantage, they slipped through a side door and into the night. They ran until they reached a crowded downtown area, blending in with the throng of people. Knowing they couldn't keep running, Ethan decided it was time to face Kane directly. Using the hacked server files, he found the location of a private gala Kane was hosting that night, a charity event where the pharmaceutical giant would showcase its contributions to society. "This is our chance," Ethan said, determination burning in his eyes. "If we expose Kane in front of his investors and the media, he'll have nowhere to hide." They managed to sneak into the event, disguising themselves as catering staff. Inside the opulent ballroom, Kane stood on stage, addressing a room full of powerful people. "This company represents the future of medicine," Kane declared, his voice confident. "Together, we are saving lives and changing the world." Ethan stepped forward, interrupting the speech. "Or destroying them for profit," he shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. Gasps filled the room as all eyes turned to him. Security rushed toward Ethan, but Lena projected the incriminating video files onto a massive screen behind Kane. The footage of sick patients, unethical experiments, and secret meetings played in vivid detail. Kane's face turned ashen. "This is a setup," he stammered, but the damage was done. Federal agents, tipped off by Ethan's earlier email, stormed the event and arrested Kane on the spot. The crowd erupted into chaos as investors and guests fled the scene. In the days that followed, MedGenix crumbled. The company's illegal activities were front-page news, and Kane was sentenced to life in prison. Ethan's expos earned him accolades and cemented his reputation as a fearless journalist. Lena decided to use her expertise to advocate for stricter regulations in the pharmaceutical industry, determined to prevent another MedGenix from rising. As for Ethan, he knew his work wasn't done. Standing on the balcony of his apartment, looking out over the bustling city, He felt a sense of fulfillment. The truth matters, he whispered to himself. Behind the pills had been greed and corruption, but uncovering the truth had brought justice. And for Ethan, that was worth everything. Thank you so much for watching that video. If you enjoyed the story and want to see more, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. And if you loved what you saw, leave a comment or share it with someone who might enjoy it too. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.